Welcome all. So I'm just watching here. We've got a stream of people still entering this session. So we'll give maybe a minute just for people to find a chair and get comfortable. So I suppose as a short introduction before we get into the meat of it, it's fantastic to be here. I'm Paudie O'Reilly and your host for the day. And to be honest, it's one of the events during the year that I'm probably most excited at. I think lots of really nice things happen, especially when we bring something like digital transformation and research together. And I think where the two overlap is absolutely fundamental to our future, in terms of digital transformation, because it's really where we start to draw evidence from, I suppose, what we do with digital transformation, how we do it, how we should do it, etc. Now, this event, and it's fantastic to have the range of speakers we have and our keynote, Dr. Stephen McCarthy, but the event is focused on what we call practitioner research. Okay, now, I suppose just to explain what that is to people, I suppose the first thing is it is academic quality research, but it is performed by practitioners. And I think that's a very important differentiation to make, to know that it is academically, I suppose, sound, but it's performed by practitioners. Now, I suppose the result of that can be very interesting, that most research, academic research that's done is done by academics where they look into organizations. Whereas what we're dealing with here is professionals, practitioners that are in the field performing research in their own environment. Now, that isn't without its challenges, and I'm sure we'll hear some of them today, but I think also it can be very, very valuable in terms of its insights. So I suppose there's a number of purposes to practitioner research. There's a number of aims. Okay, one is that it creates value. So it creates value for organizations, society, etc. A second aim is it produces defensible knowledge. And that knowledge could be for a practitioner audience, to help improve current practices, lead towards best practices, and it could be contributions to the academic community. The third thing, and we see it in buckets here as well today, I think, is contributions to people's own professional development. Okay, now, I suppose when we do practitioner research, one of the most important elements really is developing the concept of the reflective practitioner, that really you can't do practitioner research without being a reflective practitioner. Okay, so that really means thinking critically about experiences, trying to generate lessons out of those, and then take those lessons and try and create sort of generic insights that can be used by others. So I suppose just before we do start, and before I forget, I think there's a few maybe individuals we need to acknowledge before we start with the presentations and the keynote, and also maybe a few entities. The first is that today, I suppose, is supported by the Digital Transformation Lab at UCC. It's a group that has been, I suppose, gathering steam over the last number of months in particular, but it's a group that is really focused on peer-supported learning. Okay, it's primarily for practitioners in the digital transformation space, academics in the digital transformation space coming together to share insights and hopefully to lead to better practices, future practices that are more, I suppose, evidence-based. Now, part of the remit of that group, I suppose, is practitioner research, and we'll talk a bit about that shortly. So first, I want to just acknowledge the role of the Digital Transformation Lab, and I'm sure some of the executives involved in that group are online today and will be sharing, in fact, maybe through chat, maybe links to the group, whether that's on LinkedIn or elsewhere. I suppose the second thing I want to acknowledge is that for a number of years now, we've been running these practitioner research seminars. So it goes right back to the days when Professor David Salmon, Dr. Tig Nagel, myself started these informal sessions, maybe 4 or 5 years ago at this stage. I suppose since then, it's become a more structured approach. Again, Tig is still involved. So I want to thank the likes of Tig, but also maybe some more recent people that contribute, the likes of Dr. John McAvoy, Jeremy Hayes. More recently, actually, our keynote, Dr. Stephen McCarthy has progressed from being one of the participants with us in the room to actually presenting back into that group. And also we've Dr. Carol Kelleher. So I think I'd just like to say thanks to those, because without those seminars wouldn't run, and without those seminars, we probably wouldn't have built the knowledge, skills, expertise to get us to where we are today in terms of these individual presentations. And also, I think it's important to point out that these individual presentations are exemplars. Okay, they're exemplars at a point in a journey. So these aren't the end of a journey, even though a lot of the individuals here would have been involved in the last 10 months in monthly seminars with us. It's not the end of a journey. It's probably just a point in a journey where they're constantly trying to, I suppose, create that value that we spoke about. You know, and we see examples here of people that create value for their organization, but also societal value. You know, secondly, they're involved in producing robust knowledge. And I think a testament to that is the fact that I'd say maybe 4 or 5 papers, academic quality papers published in academic outlets or conferences have come about through the people presenting today. Dr. Stephen McCarthy himself, and I'm sure Steve will introduce himself afterwards. I know probably has a few dozen publications at this stage, and a lot of them again coming from his practitioner research role in different projects. Okay, so that's very exciting. So I suppose there's probably different flavors. We're going to see different flavors of practitioner research today. There isn't just one way of doing practitioner research. Some of them are maybe more action research. So action research is about reflecting very deeply on what you are experiencing, or your team is experiencing, or your organization is experiencing, where you use those as opportunities to improve your performance and you iterate around. So that's action learning. And I know maybe even looking down through the list here, we probably have examples, even maybe Kieran O'Driscoll there, you know, talking about, you know, building data analytics within an organization, reflecting on the experiences to date in that. We also maybe have people that are more on what we call design research, which is more focused on an artifact, a thing that we're building, than necessarily on our experiences in the environment. So maybe an example of that would be Keith Burton, you know, and the design of a platform really to support, I suppose, sustainability in organizations and reporting within organizations. In between then, where the two come together, where action research and design research, we have a thing called action design research, which is really reflecting, or the individual reflecting on building an intervention, a change within an organization. So again, we got examples of that probably, and I can even see it in Michael Toomey's title of his presentation there, which is very much focused on maybe the experience of a researcher, but also a patient in designing a better solution to a particular issue. So even though it's practitioner research, it doesn't mean, as I've said already, we renege on the rigor bit. In fact, probably the opposite, we nearly overcorrect. So it means that all of these presenters today would have very much researched the literature. You know, the literature may be academic literature, may be practitioner literature, in terms of informing themselves about what's the state of knowledge out there, what's the best practice out there, what are people saying about what works, what doesn't work. So again, we got plenty of examples maybe of high quality literature reviews. I know maybe Mark there at the top, Mark Revel, you know, in terms of a literature review into technical debt and maybe who's using it and how they're using it and whether together, maybe we're missing part of the value of technical debt. We also have Bernard there, you know, in terms of maybe starting to look at the literature around cybersecurity in terms of the state of the art and what we know, what we don't know. Again, we don't stop there. We then build on the literature, and we build, I suppose, lenses or ways of looking at maybe what's happening in organizations. I suppose academics would call this a theoretical frame, you know. We got plenty of examples here again, and I know we're very excited to know Elaine Baer, Ken Russell just recently got accepted to present at a European conference. Again, by not just taking literature, but building on literature. So I'm not going to say, I suppose, too much here. I think I'm going to hand over really to the presenters and let them tell their own stories. I know I'm going to sit back, enjoy it. The way we're going to structure it is as a mini conference. So it's short, sweet, and it's really trying to get to the point, get the lessons out as quickly as we can, and then allow questions and answers. So each presentation should be only 10 minutes long, and we've maybe then another 5-10 minutes to ask questions of it. So everyone attending should have access to the chat here, and I'll just make sure I have mine switched on here as well. And I suppose the chat is your opportunity for asking any questions you want. I know when you're in chat, you can address the questions to everyone in the room, which is probably the ideal that we all then can see. So you address it to all panelists and attendees. So I suppose without, delaying it any further, I'm going to shortly hand over to Dr. Stephen McCarthy. As I said, Steve started